Good morning and welcome to this presentation with Rottneros. My name is Benedicte and I work as an analyst at ABG. Allow me to introduce Lennart, CEO at Rottneros. Please go ahead, Lennart.
Thank you, Benedict, and hello to everybody. It's a pleasure to be here today, and I really didn't have a good opening for this day, so let us just send our thoughts to those in the Ukraine, and for the next hours focus on the business that we are here to cover. Some words about Rottneros. We have been around for more than 400 years. We are a pure play pulp producer up until this year. We have a long history, and I think that as such is a testimony of us being sustainable. But just history as such is not enough proof to be sustainable, and that is something that we certainly work with going forward in every aspect of our business. And what is Rottneros today? We have two pulp mills, one on the east side of Sweden, north of Stockholm, where we make sulfate kraft pulp, chemical pulp. We have the original Rottneros mill in Värmland, where we make mechanical pulp. Close by, in the same city, we also have Rottneros Packaging, where we make molded fiber trays. Have done that for a long time, but are now accelerating our business efforts. And we have also sourcing operations, both in the Baltics and since 2 years back, also with Nyquist Skogs, which is a forest management company which is sourcing forest from the local forest owners. 50% of Swedish forests are owned by private people, and the other part is companies, church, and the state. So as we're not having a field organization, it was important for us to complement our sourcing from state-owned and forest associations to private ownerships. We are a listed company since 1987 and are in the mid-cap list. I talked about sustainability, and for us and me, sustainability starts with our people. And it's important for them to see what are our values so they can be aligned with our values. They see what we say is what we do. We walk the talk. We have a joint vision and business idea on how to drive the company forward, and also values on how we want to work together and create a culture that is welcoming, which is also taking in aspects of diversity and equality. In order to drive a company, you have to set targets, and these are the targets that the board of Rottneros has set for us. And from a sustainability perspective, we put them in three categories. It's financial targets, social targets, and environmental targets. And I think with this triangular, and if you're focusing on these three things, we will continue to develop a company that will also be sustainable in the future, i.e. we will generate returns to our shareholders. We will be a workplace that new generations come and want to work for, and we make sure that we leave as little impact on the environment as possible. Rottneros is part of the circular bioeconomy. We source our raw materials up to 150, 200 kilometers around our mills. It's basically Swedish raw materials, so we have a little bit of imports from the Baltics, just about 10%. Last year, we have a very broad portfolio of pulps, which is focusing on dedicated niches and long-term customer relationships. And we have a business model that is built on a strong cash flow, and we've demonstrated that over the last years. Just some more words about the circular economy. As I've said, we have a sustainable and renewable raw material, the forest. We are based on European technology, Swedish and Finnish technology is mostly common used in the forest industry. And the majority of our sales is going into Europe. Some 67% of our sales is in Europe. The remainder is Asia, smaller parts in China, and some 15% in North America, thanks to the logistic possibilities that we have, as we have a deep sea harbor as one of our pulp mills. Enough about Rottneros, some words about the market. It's there where the things are happening, and as you probably know, the pulp market is a very cyclical market. We had a upwards trend in 18 and profited in that also during the year of 19. Then 20, the first year of the pandemic, was characterized by very low pulp prices, especially in Europe. And then towards the end of 2020, they started to rise, first in China. That movement came up into a standstill. And what we see here is the price line of pulp in Europe. So the blue line, the dark line, is the pulp in US dollars. That is the currency pulp generally is traded in. And as we are a Swedish company, we then translate that into Swedish kronas, which is the lighter line just beneath that. So you can see that in 2021, the market developed very positively. It peaked in October at a new all-time high, $1,340. That came down in November and December, and you might have feared that that downward trend, as also you can see historically, should have maybe gotten on for a little bit longer. But due to logistic constraints in global transportations, that downward trend already stopped in January. January prices were unchanged versus December. And in February, we saw an increase to $1,300 again. And we are now targeting $1,350 as of March. To understand a little bit what is driving the prices, it's a question of balance, the balance between supply and demand, as we tend to look at it as the stock levels of pulp. And the bars here are the stock levels. The line again is the US dollar pulp price on a monthly basis. On the previous chart, it was the quarterly average, but here it's the monthly price. And this is only until December. So we haven't the latest figures in here. But as you see, the bars at the bottom have come down since the peak at the early 19. And we had a downward trend. And we can see that also and hear that customers are desperate for pulp. It's a very tight market, and all we produce, we actually can sell. As I've said initially, Europe is our major market. It's the paper and board market in Europe that we're playing on. And this is the entire market. So this is both integrated producers that make their own pulp. It's paper producers or board producers that use recycled pulp. And it's those who we supply to, non-integrated players who make paper or board without having their own pulp making facility. And as you can see here, container board is by far the biggest part of the market. Graphical paper is down to 21%. It used to be the major paper grade, but that has shifted over the years. And there's an accelerating trend recently due to digitization, the way we consume news and books in our reading pads instead of the printed media. That has led to a decrease and a concentration. There's an ongoing closure of machines going on as well. But the packaging market is strong, it's growing, and also tissue, which you see here with 9% on the top left corner, is a growing market. We'll come back to that in a little while. But as I said, we are a pure play pulp player. We are focused on niches. We have a huge variety of different qualities. 2 pulp mills making 4 different main qualities of pulp. And then if we combine all the different customer-specific qualities we have, we are plus 50 different grades. Some are general qualities, some are customer tailor-made qualities just to fit their production. So we have brown and white long fiber sulfate kraft pulp. That's chemical pulp, basically out of Vallvik, which is on the east side. And we have 2 lines for mechanical pulp in Rottneros mill. The big difference between these grades is if you take a chemical pulp mill, 50% of the raw material we take in, 50% of the wood becomes pulp, and the remaining 50% becomes energy. So this is a very bioenergy-driven circular process, whereas on the mechanical pulp side, the yield of the wood is 95 to 98%. So almost all of the wood we take in becomes fibers, but in order to free those fibers up, we have to add a lot of energy. So for the mechanical pulp, energy is important. We all know how the energy market has developed over recent years and months, especially now in the winter of 2021-2022. In order to level out the effects of this volatile energy cost, we do have a long-term energy price hedging in place. We have hedged our electricity prices up to 2025 with a very high amount of hedge coverage this year, next year, and 2024, and then it's coming down, and then we're continuously building onto our energy hedges. So the average price is around 31 euros per megawatt hour, which is of course giving us the peace of mind to develop our business and adopt to a new scenario that is emerging here on the energy market. And then on the far right, you can see fiber trays. This is our molded fiber trays that we produce ourselves based on our own mechanical pulp. If we take all the grades we are having and combine them, you can see then on the right side what different applications we are supplying to and how all our different grades can be combined. And you also see on the figures there on the left what their share in our sales is. So white NBSK, that's the long fiber chemical pulp, is the largest quality with 31%, 24% is the UKP, and so forth. And then, of course, we have all the various applications to the right side. And then we can see here on the next slide how our sales are distributed over these various grades. So 26% of our sales is going into the board and packaging. This is a growing segment. And here we see basically all our grades are suitable. The white side you would see on the printed side of a carton board. The brown side you often find inside, in some applications even a brown both in and outside carton board. The CTMP is in the middle of the board, giving it bending stiffness, bending strength. And here we have customers who are both integrated and non-integrated. And we also have our groundwood quality that is going to this grade. And it's in the board and packaging. Things are happening going forward. Filter is another speciality based on the way on how we dry our pulps. Printing and writing is decreasing. It's 21 on a European level. It's 17 for us, and it's decreasing. If you compare this over the years, it has come down over the recent years from some 27% to 17%. Electrical applications, that can be the inner part of a transformator. It's isolating paper. It's isolating material in condensators. So these are very high technical applications which demand a very pure pulp with very low conductivity, and this is a quality that only very few suppliers can produce. And then we have specialities and tissue. Tissue is an increasing market, but we see this is not the segment or application where we actually have the most customer benefits. So this is something we try to have as a balancing factor to see that we can level out demand variations in our more niched and focused areas. Some words about last year. We're on the beginning of March, so soon we will have a first quarter report, so I just stick to the full year figure of 2021. And as you can see here, coming from 2020 on the left to 2021 on the right, we had a strong impact from prices. And that's an impact of the curve that we've seen there, and that the pulp price has gone up. Currency actually has strengthened during the course of 2021. The Swedish krona strengthened versus the dollar, so that has a negative impact, but the overall impact was some 297. Volume-wise, it was not a very good year for us. We had some production issues, so that was a negative impact. But we also saw a very positive impact on variable costs. And here on the variable side also our electricity hedges go in. So this becomes a bit technical, but by and large you can say that our 2021 energy price, the real cost we had after hedges and the spot market, was lower than in 2020. Fixed cost has increased. There were some maintenance efforts to cater for a generation shift in operations. We have quite a large number of people that will phase out through to pensioner in the coming years. So here we are preparing to have operators in place, so they are fully trained when that becomes when that comes and happens. And if we just look over time, we saw that 2021 is a year that we now have put behind us, with a very strong performance in 2021, where we had positive quarterly results quarter by quarter. So sorry if I said 2021 was a weak year. It was 2020 that was a year of not so strong performance. But again, we have come back in 2021. And on the basis of the strong results that we had on the bottom line, we had refinanced ourselves. We issued a bond in 2017 with a 5-year tenure. It was a framework of 600 million. We only drew 400 of those. We didn't really need those, despite the fact of all the investments they have made between the years of 15 to 18. So we decided to pay it back early, and then taken up a new bank loan, which now has a facility of 150 traditional loan and 100 million in a revolving facility plus a check credit. So it's only the 150 that we've drawn at this point. The positive side with a new bank financing is that we have a lower financing cost year on year. I talked about our cash position and how our financial situation is currently. So it's very low debt. We actually have a positive cash at the end of last year. We only have utilized the 150 million, so we have 282 as a credit reserve that we can use if times become rougher going forward. You can see here also our net debt over equity ratio has been very strong. Despite the fact that we had investments of 125 million last year, we started paying a dividend, which was agreed upon at the extra shareholder meeting in September. And for this year's shareholder meeting in April, the board has proposed a dividend of 0.6 Swedish kronor per share. So a very good cash flow, a strong balance sheet and financing situation that gives us the possibility to continue developing Rottneros in the way we would like to do that. And that brings us to what is driving the market going forward. We see some major trends. Globalization maybe come to stop, but we will continue to see an increasing number of people that increase their welfare. So tissue will continue to grow. E-commerce has grown strongly over the last years and will to do so. We see this green transition, and that probably is accelerating very strongly now, which needs more cables, more transformators, which will be a boost for the unbleached kraft pulp, and sustainability as an overriding theme for all the forest industry, and of course Rottneros as such as well. Our drive to come away from fossil-based products. And there we have Rottneros Packaging, where we decided together with Arctic Paper to start building a facility where we can utilize the technology that we have created over 15 years. So we are actually the first producer of a modified atmosphere packaging on a fiber basis that has not been in the market before. So to sum it up, we continues to see a strong market. There was a small dip at the end of 2021, but coming into 2022, it has bounced back. We are having strong results with us. We continue to have a strong cash flow position and do that in order to build a balance sheet which is resilient to these terrible and volatile times that we're heading for. And despite the fact that we're focusing on our pulp production, we will also continue building out packaging now, which makes it even more clear and distinct third leg for Rottneros. And with that, I leave over back to Benedict to do some questions and answers.
Yes, thank you, Lennart. Thank you for an interesting presentation. So we take a few minutes now with our short Q&A. And my first question is related to your targeted production growth of 3% per year. Could you elaborate on what pulp grade you plan to grow within, and also related to Rottneros has a wide range of different application for its pulp. Could you elaborate on which market do you see the highest growth going forward?
So if we start with the production question, we had an investment program called the Agenda 500 that was between 2015 and 2018. Over those years, up until last year, we invested almost 1.2 billion Swedish kronor, which is half of our annual turnover. Those investments were focused on enhancing our environmental position, debottlenecking parts of our production, as well as in focusing on quality. And the grades that we've focused most on are the chemical pulp mill in Vallvik, where we make both the brown and the white. And that is really not depending on us, on how that share is, but it depends on the market. We are very flexible. So we will see a continued production there. Targeted, or the permit we have is 255. And our focus is now to at least get it up to 245,000 tons. So that's where our efforts are focusing on there. And then in the Rottneros mills, it's primarily the CTMP that we've invested for. We've invested for an fossil-free energy system at Rottneros mill. We basically do not use any fossil oils anymore. We have a biomass boiler. We have a wastewater treatment system that will generate methane gas in the future in order to substitute the remaining liquid natural gas that we're using as a top-up energy for the drying part. And the CTMP line has gone from some 80,000 tons and now to 220, and that is where we'll also see going forward that there is more room to bring out CTMP. So it's chemical pulp and CTMP where we see. Groundwood is the most traditional way of making pulp, where you actually grind the wood logs against rotating stones. And it's very difficult to actually increase the production in that line. There are some fixed parameters which we do not or cannot impact on. So CTMP and chemical pulp. When we look into the various applications, I would say we continue to see a strong growth in board and packaging, definitely. Not the least also by what we see is happening overall in the market. There is a squeeze on recycled fibers. Corrugated is mostly based on recycled fibers. A lot of board grades are based on recycled fibers. And as those grades are growing and there is a smaller amount of recycled fibers available, this will open up for potentially more primary pulp into that market segment. But also filter is growing. Filter, here we talk about coffee filters, we talk about engine filters, both for air and liquids, oil, gasoline. Despite the fact that we are electrifying the car fleet, this will take a long time before all cars which are actually running around right now will be substituted. That means there is a secondary market and spare part markets, which our customers are supplying into. And then, of course, we have the electronical applications, as I've said, going from fossil-based energy into wind-based and solar-based. You need to build transmitting lines, you have to build new transformators, and all of that is driving the demand of our customers and their customers to use more brown pulp, unbleached pulp at the very high quality with very low conductivity.
Thank you, Lennart. And also, you have an interesting project with Arctic Paper, as you talked about. Could you give some more flavor about the market you're about to enter, and what is your long-term strategy within fiber packaging? This is currently a very small part of your business, but where do you see this going into the future?
Yeah, I easily could get carried away if I would start at work and see that going into the future. But there's a huge amount of fossil-based packaging in the market, single-use packaging, plates, bowls, cups, pre-prepared food packaging, all of that can be actually substituted. I mean, we in the forest industry, we all believe and say whatever is made out of fossil-based materials can be made on the basis of bio-based products, fibers. So we have a technology which we have accumulated over 15 years. When we moved out in 2019 from the mill, where we had a small demonstrating production going on into new locations, we also got food certificated, i.e. food production certificated. We have created a new production line, both with thermoforming and laminating, and that is really the key. I mean, this is already a big market. If you look into Asia, there are many of these thermoforming machines, most of them for more simpler application. It could be packaging, where you have corner protections and technical products, but also single-use plates, bowls, cups, and so forth. But when you start adding a barrier, this is actually where the technical know-how comes in. We don't want to do this on the basis of PFAS, which is polyfluorocarbon chains, which are cancerogene and which we do not want to have in our products. So this is what we will not work with. And there already is a ban for PFAS in Europe in place, or in certain countries, and I think it will develop over the years. So we are working on adding the barrier into the mold, so you don't have to add an extra film. But for the highest barrier need in order to have a modified atmosphere packaging, you still have to add a film at this point. It could be a fossil-based film or a biomaterial-based film, as long as it has an oxygen barrier. And combining all of that, we see that the market is so big that we cannot meet it from our production site in Sweden. It's also quite far away from the market, so we found the perfect fit in Arctic Paper. They're located 80 kilometers east of Berlin. It's an infrastructure in place. It's an existing big paper mill. So water, wastewater treatment, fresh water, electricity, all of that is there. It's the proximity to the market which is important, because if you start transporting packaging, it's a lot of air you're transporting around. So here also the proximity makes it that we will be cost competitive. But it's a vast market, and even if we look at a production facility that we are planning for with 100 million packs, that is only a fraction of the market, and I think we will see a very strong move away from fossil-based going forward.
Thank you for a very interesting thoughts, Lennart. I think our time is running up now, so thank you very much for the presentation today and taking the time to present to us. Thank you also to all who listened in. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.